Welcome to the Superintendent's Report. I'm Cory Mason, filling in for Carol, and joining me, of course, is Superintendent Jason Golden. And Mr. Golden's summer break is upon us, and you would think that we wouldn't have that much to talk about, but that's not the case. Just as we record this, last night was our June school board meeting, and there's a lot to unpack there. I'd like to begin, though, with some of our student celebrations. Our Student and Staff Spotlight Awards were pretty special last night. They included 27 students who've earned a perfect ACT score in just the last couple of months, which is really remarkable. Can you talk a little bit about what that sort of accomplishment means for those students and their families?
Well, traditionally, Carol Birdsong shares those at our board meetings, especially those who know our community know that that's one of Carol's traditional processes. She's out, and so you got to share those last night. What we do with our students and what our students do is really incredible. You mentioned 27 students were celebrated last night as having had a perfect ACT score. This year so far, we've had 71 students get a perfect ACT score. I jotted myself a little note, in Williamson County Schools, we celebrate state and national championships and perfect scores, et cetera. We actually this year, as we just finished up the school year, had 97 students with a 35 ACT, just 1 point below the max, which again, we had 71 students celebrate that. The doors that are opening for our students because of their successes in the classroom, their mastery of our standards is really incredible. Those perfect ACT scores translate into scholarship dollars for our students who are looking to move to the next level. Had a conversation just yesterday with some leaders in the city of Franklin through the Franklin Tomorrow project. And I mentioned that about 80% of our students choose to go straight to college. And so we know that that's very important to them and their families to open up those opportunities. So it was great to celebrate those students.
And we also celebrated several state championships because between the last Superintendent's Report and this one, we had our Spring Fling State Championships for our high school students. And we also had the Track and Field State Championships for middle school students. Our middle school students came away with 4 state titles. Our high school students earned 16 state titles. How great is it to see our students compete and do so well on the big stage?
Well, so many of the celebrations last night were about track and field because we talk about Spring Fling. That's the TSSAA event where a number of sports are competing in the same venue, whether it's track, softball, baseball. Some of those spring sports all compete in the same area. I think tennis is involved in that as well. It's a really neat event for the state. Track and field is really where our students excelled this year at the state level. Multiple state championships. Track and field is really interesting to me because it's that unusual combination of individual effort and team. So we had individual champions, decathlon as an example, and yet we had some 4x100 relays and ultimately team championships for our county. And it was great to celebrate those with our students. We focus on academics, athletics, and the arts in Williamson County. And our vision statement is that Williamson County Schools will provide a supportive environment where students are challenged to excel in academics, athletics, and the arts. And we talk about that combination of support and challenge, that balance that we provide our students. When we see that excellence, when we see students excel, it's just wonderful for us to see that success for our students. Those state championships are something that those students will remember for the rest of their lives. And I will tell you, those who were able to compete and might have come up a little short, that's going to give them motivation as well to succeed in life. The value of athletics, the value of arts, with that strive towards excellence, that teamwork that's inherent in the activity, is something that the value of it just can't be measured for our students as they progress into their lives and their careers.
Absolutely. And speaking of athletics, tonight, as we record this, the Wilco Awards, the 10th annual Wilco Awards will be happening in Franklin. Such a great event, so exciting for these student athletes and their families. They get all dressed up. They get to, a lot of them show up in limos and these really fancy cars. They get to walk the red carpet. They're interviewed. It's really such a great event that our athletic director, Darren Joins, puts on each year. And really just a special memory for these students and their families.
You know, we call it the Wilcos, and so many local school systems across the nation have borrowed from ESPN, you know, the ESPYs that have been going on for decades. When I think of it, I think of Jim Valvano and the speech he gave decades ago about perseverance. And we've had some similar celebrations with some of our students over the years at our Wilcos as we're hitting our 10th year. Examples of students who just push through incredible adversity and are great examples to their classmates and their teammates. We also celebrate student successes. It's really a fun night. We do something similar with our arts. We usually do that a little bit before school releases. We do our Wilcos after school releases because of that spring fling we were just talking about, because so many of those state championships happen in early June.
And speaking of the Wilco Awards, you can check out all the winners in this week's issue of In Focus, which will be released on June 19th. So back to the school board meeting last night, the first order of business, and I believe it was due to the fact that state law requires it being the first order of business, was the board actually approved a contract extension for you, 3 years to now 4 years. Something that we're all excited about, and I imagine you are too.
Well, state law in Tennessee allows for a superintendent's contract to be no longer than 4 years. I've just started my 6th year as superintendent. For me personally, that's hard to believe. I'm sure everybody has those experiences in their work. And historically, our board has looked at the contract annually, started at 4 years, and we have a process where they look at it at that 3-year mark and decide whether to extend it. Every year our board has done it and extended me to 4 years. I very much appreciate the faith that they have in me, but I tell you, it's about our team effort. I've been here in Williamson County Schools for about 18 years, and I've been the superintendent a little over 5 now, and I've never seen a better team. The work that we do, the commitment to excellence with our students, the collaboration that our teachers have together to grow just that 1% better our students each day and each year really does my heart good. So I appreciate the faith that our board has shown in our team. In the work we're doing. For those of our community who've moved here because of the schools, we know that you've placed your trust in us, and we do strive for that excellence. We use research-based practices to make sure we do the best for your child, and this does not happen by accident. This success that we have is a result of an entire community working together, professionals who know what they're doing. The professional work our teachers are doing is second to none.
A lot of hard work, a lot of dedicated individuals, and it shows off with the results that we've seen this past year. You mentioned the ACT scores. There's so many. It seems like it just keeps getting better and better. So,
and Cory, you gave me a prompt. You mentioned ACT scores, and I mentioned earlier that about 80% of our students go on to college when they finish their high school career. We also, this year, celebrated 314 industry certifications for our students. In addition to our AP classes and those really difficult academic classes, we have some very challenging college and career technical education programs as well. So many of our students received OSHA 10, OSHA 30 certifications, culinary arts certifications for food preparation, certified nurse assistant certifications, on and on through our college and career technical education programs where students were able to get that extra leg up. A month ago, Carol Birdsong and I mentioned the number of Fairview High School students who graduated with a 2-year degree from Columbia State in addition to their high school diploma. So the opportunities that we have for students, no matter what they're interested in, continues to grow, continues to expand as we continue to give our students opportunities.
It's fantastic. Another item that came up for vote last night, the board approved a revised budget for the 24-25 fiscal year. Can you talk a little bit about why there was a need for the revised budget and sort of where we are in the process, where we go from here.
So we go through a budget process that actually consumes probably about 3/4 of every year. We really start our budget work in October to prepare for the next year. The reality is we don't know all our revenue in October. We don't know what we're going to get, in a year to a year and a half out from when we start our budget process. This year, the County Mayor Rogers Anderson and I talked about competing for staffing, recognizing that with inflation and our neighbors, it's very difficult to maintain competitive pay for our staff. So he introduced to me the proposition, the idea that we ought to shoot for a 6% pay raise for everyone. The reality is we knew on the front end that we were not going to be able to afford that without help from county government. In Tennessee, our budget structure is what I think of as bifurcated. Our school board votes on the expense side of the budget, but has no control over the revenue side. Our county commission is a decision maker on the revenue side. So in addition to the state funding we receive and just the little bit that we get from federal, our county commission has to make that decision. So as a team, we went together to our board and to the county commission to ask for a 6% pay raise for all Williamson County Schools staff and faculty and county government staff, including the highway department and other services, sheriff's office, that the county government prepares, knowing, again, that we didn't have the money for it. So back in March, our board approved a budget knowing that there was a deficit. These last 3 months, we've gone through the process with county government, really asking the question, how are we going to fund that? So last night, after many discussions, many public meetings with our county commission and our board made some adjustments to our budget. And we used basically every tool available to us to present to the county commission a balanced budget with that 6% raise that does not include a property tax increase. So to do that, we made some cuts from our original proposal. To do that, county government is proposing to the commission some additional help from county government out of their fund balance. We have also included a proposal to take some of our operating expenses that we know we're going to have and cover it with some additional capital money, some contingent capital money from some of our earlier projects. And finally, we know that we may have to bring something to the county commission later on in the year to address some of our needs with fund balance. Now, I want to mention that briefly. I'm maybe giving too much detail related to budget, but it's on my mind right now. Number one, the state requires school systems to have a budget with 3% designated as unfunded. Well, let me restate that. Undesignated fund balance. We have to have a 3% fund balance to start the year where we haven't earmarked that funding for an actual expense. Next, county government has us budget our property tax revenue at 92%. One of the reasons for that is because one of our main funding sources is sales tax, and sales tax has the potential to fluctuate. So if we budget property tax at 92%, we've got that fail-safe just in case the sales tax projections don't come in. So we've made a proposal. Our county commission is going to vote on that in just a couple of days from now, right near the end of June, to prepare for our July 1st fiscal year. The plan is for all our staff members to have a 6% raise. We need to do that to stay competitive. Our per pupil expenditure is among the lowest in the state. We do a lot with what we have, and largely we do it because we put our funds and our efforts as much as we possibly can into direct classroom services. Now, one interesting note about that is I mentioned the property tax rate. The proposal can be funded without a property tax increase this year. In the last 19 years, from 2005 to today, Williamson County's property tax rate has dropped from $2.84 for every $100 value to $1.88 for every $100 value. In less than 20 years, the property tax rate has dropped close to $1. The way county government and we have been able to do that is largely through growth. The structure for the tax processes in the state increases when there's growth. So for every farm that turns into a neighborhood, we have more responsibilities because people move in. but the value increases a little bit to try to cover that. So I'm pretty proud of what our county commission has done with funding. We know that every year it gets tighter and tighter as we have to continue to compete, as inflation happens, as we try to provide as much as we can a professional living income for our teachers. As property values goes up, that becomes more and more difficult. But through that long process, we know that we've got a budget in place that can be achieved without that tax increase this year.
You mentioned that the county commission will be meeting to vote on the budgets. That is Thursday, June 20th. Our friends at WCTV will be broadcasting that meeting on their channel, as well as they live stream it on their YouTube channel as well. So I know a lot of us will be watching and waiting to see what happens there. Another topic of discussion last night, a policy we often refer to as the library materials policy, came up for second reading. And can you talk about that? There was some changing to the wording, I think, based on a new state law. Can you kind of fill us in there?
There's a new state law that's going into effect for us this school year that is very specific about what can be in a library and what cannot, and also required us to have a process to review textbooks. So the new policy includes the specific state language. We spent a number of months working on that, actually with constitutional attorneys, because we're bound by the federal laws related to the First Amendment, free speech, cases that date back 50 years ago related to student access to different thoughts, and we must overlay that with the state law. So our board spent a lot of time in public discussions about trying to find that balance, make sure we're complying with the state law, and set up a policy that will allow us to comply and honor the First Amendment law as well. There's a little bit of controversy related to it because the reality is our constitutional attorneys have told us at public meetings they're not sure about that balance. So we've put a policy in place that we know will comply with state law, that it's designed to comply with the First Amendment as well. And we'll see how it goes. There's a lot of concern and discussion, especially in our community, really across the nation, about content in libraries. We know that we have that responsibility to honor the First Amendment and state law. I will emphasize that we have had processes in place really for a number of years that allow any parent to opt out of anything they don't want their children to see or to read. It started out decades ago, even with something as simple as a science experiment where they might be looking at a frog in a science class. A student can opt out of a dissection class, for example. Likewise, if a student and their parents don't want to have access to a particular book in the library, we honor that. Every one of our school websites have an electronic list of every item that's in not just our school libraries, but also in classroom collections. So if anyone has any concerns, I encourage you to pull up your school's webpage, go to the library media center site on that webpage, and you can find out every book that might be available to your child and share whatever concerns or questions you might have. A lot of talk last night was about balancing the parent's wishes for their child versus another parent's wishes for their child. So again, I encourage folks, if you have any concerns at all about your child's access, then have that conversation with your principal after you look at what's available on our website.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance for sure, but a lot of good conversation last night about that. One of the things, as we're now in the middle of summer, that we ask our families to do each year around this time is the families of students who will be returning to the district, we ask them to fill out back to school forms. And these forms are so important. If you're a parent like me, you probably already received the email from your child's school just letting you know that that form will become available starting Saturday, June 22nd. I think families will have about 3 weeks to fill out those forms. Can you talk about why these forms are so important in terms of us preparing for the start of the school year and staffing and schedules and all of those things?
Well, Cory, you really kind of addressed it, staffing and schedules. So we do have a mobile community. We're in a professional area in Metro Nashville, and we have a lot of folks move in, and a job might take someone out over the summer. So we do ask folks to let us know. Just fill out those forms so that we know that you are still here, you are coming back. We do that for staffing. We have pupil-teacher ratios that we follow. Some of it's our standards, some of it is the state standards. We have our projections every year that we use to establish our budget, but we really like to know how many folks are going to be here in our schools as quickly as we can. I will tell you, kindergarten is our biggest challenge because we can generally predict who's going to come in from first grade on to second. Kindergarten's a new thing for us because we don't track all the children who are in our community until they actually arrive with us. So I do encourage folks, let your friends know. If you know someone through any network you have who might have a 4 or 5 year old who's getting ready for school, encourage them to get on our website, wcs.edu.
And speaking of staffing, Williamson County Schools will host a support staff career fair coming up on July 16th. That's a Tuesday from 9 a.m. until noon right here at the County Administrative Complex. We will be hiring all sorts of positions, really those positions that are so vital to the operations of our district.
We have a number of positions that are open and we know have traditionally been open. We've had a long history of high growth. We've actually stabilized our growth a little bit over the last year or so. District-wide, we've stabilized. We do have some areas that are growing a lot and then some other areas where people have said, I'm not moving out. I like it here too much. But as part of that, we are close to 99% staffed with our teachers, but we have a lot of hard-to-fill positions. However, in some of those support positions, bus drivers, teachers' assistants, some of those support positions in the schools, we have a number of openings still. That's the classified fair that you talked about, Cory. Our classified positions we're recruiting for. Certainly encourage folks to come. I tell you, that kind of work can be very, very rewarding. Our bus drivers especially, we have a lot of retirees who like the idea of working a couple of hours in the morning, having a break in midday, and then doing the routes in the afternoon. You get health insurance. If you're a full-time bus driver, even though you might not be doing 40 hours based on the schedule, we do provide full-time health insurance. And so we do encourage folks to look that up if you want to find a way to make a difference for a child.
Yeah. And if you do come out to that career fair on Tuesday, July 16th here in Franklin, be sure and bring your resume, dress professionally, because there's a good chance you'll be interviewed right there on the spot. So we hope to see you here. It's summer break. And the work really never stops. Even though the word break is in there, it's still going on. One of the great things about summer that I always enjoy is our teachers oftentimes become the students during the summer. There are so many great professional development opportunities for our educators and our staff here in Williamson County. And it's an opportunity for them to continue to grow and improve in their craft. And we hear you talk about this all the time, just that constant drive to collaborate and to get 1% better.
You mentioned professional development for our teachers. We actually have on our webpage, WCS by the numbers. If you pull up that document, we actually have a list of our professional development opportunities for our teachers. That number has actually gone down over the last few years. And let me tell you why. We are doing a better job of targeting our professional development to student learning. As opposed to simply teaching, we're talking about student learning. We are asking the questions in a very professional way. Have our students learned what they need to learn? And so we have developed professional development in that context to give those teachers that opportunity to get better at that craft. There's a lot of detail surrounding this, and it's really based on research that's probably close to 40 years old. An MTSU professor just next door, Middle Tennessee State University professor Bob Aker, was deeply involved in this research a few decades ago and is still somewhat involved in establishing that it's important for teachers to know what students need to learn, really know the standards, know how to measure whether students have mastered those standards, then know if our students haven't mastered those standards, what do we do? And if they have, how are we able to give them some advanced skills that might go beyond those basics of what they need to learn. Our teachers are asking those questions of themselves regularly as teams. Our more experienced, skilled teachers are helping those brand new teachers grow so that every student gets that high value of instruction no matter which teacher they have. That's just a very short nutshell of what we do. But as part of that, our professional development, especially in the summer, is helping those teachers learn and grow to create professional learning communities where they are collaborating together to help their students master those standards.
As we race toward the start of a brand new school year, want to let our families know some changes they can expect to see in the coming weeks. We as a district and our schools, we are going to be transitioning websites here in the coming weeks. We are moving from one platform to another while we are trying to keep it as consistent as possible in terms of the look. We are excited because we know that these new websites will be much more user-friendly, easier to navigate, so we feel like it's going to be a good thing for our families. Our webmasters, Carrie Ann Anastas and Janelle Gibson, and all of our high school webmasters are working really hard to get things ready for the back-to-school rush. So we are excited about that. And speaking of back to school, there will not be a board meeting in July, as of right now. So this will be the last superintendent's report before the start of the new school year. As we start getting ready, because July goes fast, right? It's the lead up to the first day of school is always a huge rush. What are you looking forward to the most as we go full steam ahead to a new school year?
Well, first, I'm still thinking about this year. We have summer school through June, and it's a state-required summer school. We have about 1,600 students in summer school from grades K through 8th grade, and our budget is going to get approved this week. From an excitement standpoint, I tell you, we're doing so much better than we ever have before, and I'm thinking about, you mentioned that 1% better. We have some great teams put together. Our principals have grown their teachers in ways that we've never seen before. Every year is exciting. I think about those students who are in that last year of their grade band, those 5th graders who are thinking they're going to be kind of the leaders in their elementary school, those 8th graders who now are convinced that they've got it down, that after that 7th grade, now they're in 8th grade and they know what they're doing, and those high school seniors who are going to be experiencing their last year. Those are the ones that jump into my head, but I think about those 9th graders who are nervous. It's just the start of a school year is just full of hope. And it's a great time for our students. Some of my favorite times are in the spring when I see so much activity on our campuses outside. And if I keep on talking, I'm eventually going to pick everything out as my favorite for a school year. I know our students aren't thinking about it yet because as we record this, we're in mid to late June, but we're prepared. It is a year-long activity for us professionally. If we're going to give the professional service that we know we're capable of, it's that year-long effort.
It's a lot of excitement for sure. I do want to remind everyone that our back to school issue of In Focus will be released on July 23rd. So be on the lookout for that. If you are not currently subscribed to receive In Focus, it's easy. Just go to our website, scroll down to the very bottom. There's a little box right there where you can put in your email address and get subscribed. That's all the time we have for today. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you here next time on the Superintendent's Report.